Welcome to the Combative Nerds Podcast. Join us while we break balls and try to outwit each other at every turn while debating all things nerdom and trying to make sense of this world. Look, I'm not gonna lie, it's a Herculean task and I'm not sure we have enough brain power to do so. At the very least, we can laugh and offend each other through the process. Thanks for sharing your day with us. Now on to our show.
Guys, this is Ritter Lance and
Spider Wizard.
Spider Wizard, also the author of The De La Riva Guard. It's not only good for BJJ, but it's the even better excuse to scissor another man's leg. So, how's your BJJ been?
I mean,
am I wrong?
You're not, and that's why I'm sort of stuttering. I'm trying to think of like, well, is it that? No, but you kind of have to. You like sort of weave yourself around, and even if you get the hooking foot pushed down, you can switch to reverse De La Riva, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're just kind of scissoring from the other direction.
Cowboy scissoring, got it.
Yeah. I mean, both end in like a vicious twist on your ankle and knee, but
I mean, if I wasn't a jerk, I could have said grapevine another man's leg, but I thought scissor was more appropriate.
Scissor's more fun. Grapevine doesn't sound sexual inherently, and grapevine is a pretty well-used term in wrestling as well. Grapevine just sounds inert. Scissoring, there's only one thing people think of.
Especially after the South Park episode.
That's exactly what I was thinking of, too.
That's what inspired
Shayla, scissor me timbers. It's exactly what I was thinking of.
Oh, man, this episode's already off the rails.
It's perfect. All right, and let's segue directly into the scissoriest subject we could, which is the recap of episodes 7 through 12 of Andor.
Nice transition.
Thank you.
So today we're going to discuss Andor. I just finished watching the season finale. We want to get this at a more timely pace so that we can get you a recap sooner, and we're going to do that by Fighter Wizard giving us a brief recap of episodes 7 until the finale. Fighter Wizard, what do you have for us?
All right, now I'm going to try to make this as brief and as possible. Let's see. So episodes 7 through 12 detail, obviously what happens after, but also the fallout viewed through several different lenses of the Aldhani heist that is completed with episode 6. I think 80 million credits are stolen from Aldhani, maybe 40 million, but I think it's 80 million.
Yeah.
Are stolen from Aldhani, and the rebels, led by Vel Sartha, who's the cousin of Mon Mothma, go their separate way from Andor. Actually, all of them split up to, those of whom are alive, split up and go across their separate ways. So in episode 7, the direct fallout occurs from Aldhani, and the ISB is thrown into turmoil. This is where Jarrow, the sort of head-crunching, super ambitious ISB agent, the blonde, begins to show not only her ability to politically maneuver through ISB, but also take care of competitors and demonstrate her skill, also her cunning. I think that was redundant. Then episodes 8, 9, 10, well, actually 8, 9, and 10 detail Cassian's fate, which is he gets swept up in a completely bullshit charge while he's chilling in a seaside resort. And I think he wakes up with a hooker.
Yeah.
Who goes to...
nagging hooker.
Pardon me, sir. Yes. Salient point.
The reason why is they're usually paid not to nag, if I'm correct.
And I'm assuming she was paid well, considering he had 80 million credits.
Yep.
So he hides his money in the hotel room and goes out to get something. I can't remember what it was. Gets
store.
Literally.
To store.
Yeah. Okay. He's standing in the wrong place at the wrong time. And there are some people that run by him. He is assumed to be part of those people running by. He resists arrest slightly by questioning and no more questioning the trooper that is going to arrest him or is questioning him, and is thereby deemed resisting arrest, is swiftly moved through the Imperial justice system and is sentenced to 6 years and a prison colony. He's escorted to that prison colony very quickly. It's an island factory. And episodes 7, 8, 8, 9, 10, 9, and 10 show his life as a prisoner. And he engages in forced labor where they make these hexagonal, it looks like a gear. Teams work, and then the slowest team is punished. The fastest team is rewarded slightly. Yeah. And they all exist in lines. They're not allowed to talk very much. All of the floors are able to, charge with some sort of energy that either, can kill, but certainly torture anyone who gets out of line. Episode 10 is the prison break. And then episodes 11 and 12 sort of the story is told on Ferrix, which is not his home planet, but the planet from which Andor hails. You see events happen there as well, but episodes 11 and 12 really show the sort of culmination on Ferrix of all the different threads in the plot line. And, of course, throughout you have Luthen Vale and Mon Mothma, the sort of political machinations that occur on Coruscant, and how that rebellion is viewed through the different strata of Mon Mothma, from the elite to the regular schmo of Andor and all his peer group, a spy with Luthen Vale or Saw Gerrera, and what I thought was wonderful from the ISB's point of view. And then episode 12 culminates in a riot at Ferrix with the public funeral of Cassian's adopted mother, Marva. And in her recorded message, which is played at the funeral, she urges the population of Ferrix to fight for Ferrix and fight against something she had done, and fight against the heel of the Empire. Thus breaks out a riot. Lots of people are shot and killed. Lots of troopers die. It's pretty violent. And Andor escapes with his friend Bix Kayleen, his former girlfriend, and sort of rebel spy who was was captured a few episodes ago, tortured, and we're never shown what information she gives, but we can assume that somehow she knows loosely that Andor was associated with the Aldhani heist, and the ISB extracts that information. But again, they're never shown. It's just shown her torture. And episode 12 ends with Cassian meeting Luthen, and the cliffhanger is Cassian, I think, is done fighting, essentially, and says, look, you can either kill me or you can take me in. I don't care. And he hands Luthen a weapon. And Luthen just sort of smiles knowingly, and you can assume that he's recruiting him formally into the Rebel Alliance. There, that was as brief as I can make it, and I still went off the rails.
No, that was awesome. We're going to use a format, what we didn't like, what we like, and why it's important. So, let's get the little bit out of the way of what we didn't like about the episodes. Can you think of anything, Fighter Wizard?
I prefer if you go first, because it's just going to be a little bit of radio silence for me.
Okay. I felt like the finale was a bit rushed. So I went in on episode 11, toward the end of it. How are they going to wrap this all up? I have so many questions. And they did. And they did wrap it all up. But not well. Not all of it.
Okay.
Zero Khan, I still had some questions. Lieutenant, is it Miro?
Jarrow.
Lieutenant Jarrow, I had questions about them, and they kind of brought something up toward the end. The young man who threw the bomb, he seemed to be like a key player. Is it just because he threw the bomb, or is it because there was some more importance about him? So there was it needed another episode or two, or at least a longer finale. That was probably my biggest critique.
I apologize, you were correct. Miro, her name is Daedra Miro. I was way off when Jarrow.
No
There's a
Junko or somebody else who he was in the prison. So
yeah, there's also a character from a computer game I like named Amon Jarrow, which completely unrelated, but it's stuck in my mind.
I also, another critique, Cassian's adopted mother, Marva.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't add up for me.
How so?
So I get that she was broken by the actual Clem. We found out that the actual Clem got killed while trying to get the protesters to stand down years before, and that he would ended up being hung in public square. And so that had broken her spirits. and that she always had the urge to fight and rebel. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. She had a deep resentment for the Empire because of what they did. That she had to avoid the public square for the remainder of her life because she couldn't bear to go to the same place where her love interest was killed. They didn't exactly explain why she didn't flee with Cassian. Was it that she was too old? Was it that she was too tired? Was it that she just wanted to finally fight? If she wanted to finally fight, why wasn't she more vocal about it? Why did she wait till her deathbed to leave a speech? It was just all kind of convenient. There's usually a slow rolling process, right? She's just not going to, on her deathbed, leave this claim to action. She would have started discussing it sooner to all the people. Now, maybe she did do that, but we weren't privy to that in the episodes we got. So I felt like it was just a bit of a jump.
Okay. I can see your points on what you didn't like, and yet, conversely, you also just stated a lot of the things that I also like about the episodes.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. When I'm trying to think of things I didn't like, I can see how episode 12 would feel a little bit rushed, and I would have enjoyed it if that had been drawn out a little bit more. But, and this is a common argument with Star Wars, it's seldom that you get, and this is one of the few exceptions to that, the series at least, it's seldom that you get a really good feel for the chronology and time duration of the different movies, stories, etc. A great example is episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Maybe that takes place over like 2-3 weeks. Maybe that takes place over a few months.
Okay.
And I've seen both debated relatively. And usually it's around, okay, how the fuck can Anakin Skywalker go from relative hero of the Republic to child murdering shitbag in 2 weeks? We got to give him a few months to really draw that out.
Sure.
Anyway, so I can see what you're saying. When it comes to, so I don't think the bomb thrower was anyone significant. In fact, I'm going to go so far as to say I don't think anybody really in the movie, really, other than the titular character and Mon Mothma, Luthen Vale, Dedra Meero, I don't think anyone's supposed to be all that significant. Because as you and I have discussed before, it's through the eyes of the schmo. It's how the heel of the Empire affects your everyday life. And your everyday life is boring. In the last episodes, they met at 2 a.m. He was kind of drunk. They fucked, and then they woke up and had coffee and went to work. Very normal for that if you're in a relationship. Hopefully it's not normal if you're in like a stable married relationship. The Strange came over. It was a great day. But I don't think so. Anyway, I don't think that people have to be significant because at that moment they're significant to and for themselves. The climax of their life, that flair, is that they have the courage to finally fight back. Now, for that kid, he threw a bomb. He didn't die. His other friends died.
Sure.
For a lot of the people we've seen, at least appreciably, none of them really died. They sort of escaped. But all of the other people that you see, experienced their fate. And with Marva, one of the things I thought was powerful with the series was that it held back. My initial criticism of episode 12 was that it didn't have that huge emotional payoff and that whiz-bang punch you usually expect in the final acts of a Star Wars story. Rogue One, the Death Star blows up the base at Scarif,
right, and
you get the hallway scene with Darth Vader. Every episodes 1 through 9, there's always some big Darth Maul's fight, Darth Tyrannus, you can name them all. With this one, yes, there was a riot, but there was never heavy piece of cool Imperial equipment that was brought out to mow down people. Yeah, they had a heavy gun. There was no sniper that took pot shots that you saw through the scope. Even Andor's own part, he shot 1 or 2 people, but effectively performed a stealth mission and extracted Bix Caleen. Luthen Vale didn't do anything but show up, get knocked the fuck down by a thrown bomb, and then run away. So you didn't get to see a lot, and there was never, other than the prison break maybe, there was never that big glitzy scene. And with Marva, that's a good example. You never see her, I think her character's, one of her big regrets is that she never did anything. She was broken down, like you said, and she avoided conflict for the longest time. But in very few scenes over the period of Andor, which takes place over, I think, 3, 4, 5 months while he's in prison, and slightly before, 6 days, she's shown not leaving with Andor because I think she's just tired, and she's scared. and she wants him to get away and have a life that she couldn't give him and that she can't live. And then while she's isolated from him, the Empire takes a much firmer grasp of the planet, using the failed Primor security action as a pretense for doing so. And as the populace lives under that rule, she's shown in very few scenes, but she is shown becoming more resentful and traveling through the square and taking sort of reconnaissance of the hotel that they take over as their base. And people are cautioning her against it, but she says, I don't care. I'm old. My time is almost done. I'm doing something with this. And part of her tragedy is that she never really does. The biggest thing she ever did, other than bring Andor away from, I can't remember the name of his home planet, other than bring Cassian away from that planet, is after she's dead, is through her funerary message, motivating her city to fight back. And when the dude who has been ringing the bell the whole time with the hammers just fucking like drop kicks the guy off the tower. Like, yeah, fuck yeah. I was expecting him to hammer him in the thing, but no, it was way better. So yeah, there's so many things I liked about it, but one of them was that a lot of the action happened in the negative space.
When you said there was not this emotional payout toward the riot at the end, I actually saw it differently. I agree with your statement, but I think it was purposeful.
I agree. And totally agree.
So what do you think the purpose of... So like in Book of Boba Fett, when they're protecting the town and the cavalry comes and you doing this,
totally.
Right? That's what you think of a Star Wars riot.
Yes.
We didn't have that. We just had some people getting killed. Empire didn't get, overtaken. They were going to quell this rebellion, or it was just going to be a guerrilla war. So what do you think the purpose for showing that?
If I'm thinking like a filmmaker, and I am not, and I don't know any, so I can't, but if I'm thinking like a filmmaker, I could say I'm building towards, especially if I knew there was going to be extra seasons, which there are going to be, I could say I'm building more towards that climax. And the climax of Andor's story is truly the last act that he does, which is to help get the Death Star plans off the planet Scarif, their Imperial base at Scarif. But from the story arc, to me at least, people's lives very seldom are truly legendary, heroic. Now, it always seems to be legendary when we see Star Wars, because we're always seeing the giant heroes, Anakin Skywalkers and Obi-Wan Kenobis and Vaders and Palpatines. Again, the story is about regular people, and the defining heroic act of a regular person might be to throw a rock at an oppressive government one day, one moment in a square. It might be to give someone a wire that they need to make a bomb so that ferret information from it. And I think that the action here was muted because it's regular people. And you don't want there to be that payoff almost from a story perspective, because the Empire is still very much in control and they can just bring more to bear, which they do. Like most of the people in there is a true riot in the square of Ferrix, but the rioters get pretty much beat the fuck down.
Yeah.
They're the ones getting shot. There's not a whole lot of blaster bolts against. You see a few like stormtroopers get taken out, but
they don't know how to riot.
Most of the people are unarmed.
Yeah,
they don't know how to riot. They're not a force. They're not a military.
They did not pick up the blaster from the killed stormtroopers and start firing back. No. Kind of like they did in the prison scene, right? That's what I was expecting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Did not.
With yeah, exactly. I think the prison scene was more... The prison scene was the emotional payout of the series.
I would agree.
That was the one where you identified with the plight and you got what you wanted. Like, yeah, everybody escaped. Yeah, they killed a lot of guards.
Yeah.
With the riot, yes, it happened. And I also thought it was a bit of a seed for, that would light a fire across the galaxy. Oh, did you hear about the massacre at Ferrix? At least from a storytelling perspective. That was my opinion.
Yeah.
Why did you think it was less?
I mean, I would see the parallel just like in the prison colony, level 2. What happened at level 2 inspired level 5 to then actually do the riot. I could see Ferrix, essentially being the level 2.
Yeah.
So the way I saw it is I felt what happened to Ferrix was a playing out of what Luthen said during his speech with ISB officer Lonnie, who's the spy, the inside man.
Mm-hmm.
That scene, by the way, I mean, that was like Oscar worthy.
Oh, tremendous.
First
tremendous.
off, I had to, in previous episodes, apologize to Reva. Now I'm going to have to apologize to Luthen. Because now this character worked. Like, this was a character apparently he's been building up to be throughout his career. Yeah. And he finally hit it. And he's going to, unfortunately, be Luthen from here on out in all his other movies. But yeah. he crushed it. He killed it. I have a massive amount of respect for the speech. And we can go into the speech.
So there were two things, not to go into this. So I do want to go into the speech because it's an excellent bit of writing. The whole series is just an excellent demonstration of writing. So I was watching it with my family, and I turned to my husband, and he said, the speech is very good, but it seems like he's almost been waiting for someone for a long time to ask him, what's your motivation, Luthen? Like,
yeah. Well,
I'm the fires for a sunrise I'll never see.
I'll tell you why. It comes down to one word, sacrifice. And that's my answer for his speech, and that's my answer for that 2 to 3 second scene where Luthen is looking over the town in Pharynix, and he almost seems sad but relieved. Because that is the sacrifice. He sacrificed the town to get the rebellion going. Just like I was surprised. So he sacrificed Kreegyr and their mission on whatever was it, Spellhouse or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I would have thought they would have shown that action sequence. And all they did was show it on a background of a computer, all the people who got killed or were all the bad guys highlighted in red. Right?
In a way that almost reinforces, so they're obviously nothing to the ISB. It's just a pest to be wiped out, but it reinforces what it's a pawn to be moved on a board for Vale and Saw Gerrera.
And I think that's why Pharynix was portrayed. It was
that's a very good point.
That needed to happen, and the people who needed to get sacrificed to foment the resistance and rebellion going further. Now, did Luthen purposefully know that was going to happen to that city at that time? No, he was hunting Cassian. But
he was trying to kill his agent.
Yeah, he was to me, that scene where he was looking over the town in battle, in flames, was his realization of his plan coming to work, or was his plan starting to work, was his plans coming to fruition? And there wasn't a smile. There was just
no, true.
Yeah. This is a sacrifice. This is the horrible things that I set into motion.
You said coming to fruition. You corrected yourself from saying coming to work versus coming to fruition. I would argue that it's actually the other way around. I think Aldhani was his plans coming to fruition because I got the goal of stealing 80 million credits and really putting the blocks to the Empire for in a place and starting something. But he says in a conversation with Mon Mothma and through his actions through the rest of the series, yes, I intend to press on them harder. I fully intend to sacrifice other people to get the rebellion started. And that's not Mon Mothma's style, but Luthen Vale says, this is what you're paying me for, essentially. And he does exactly that, to your point. And through that lens, through sacrificing other people, which he does with Kreegyr as well, he demonstrates, this is the plan starting to work. Fruition is later. Fruition, he admits he will never see. It's cool that he says sunrise he'll never see, and it's a bright burst of light that ends Rogue One. But the back dealings and the machinations that he does behind the scenes, they're starting to work in place, and Ferrix is a very good demonstration of that. Yeah. I have to say, so the first 6-ish, 7 episodes, and then 8, 9, and 10, the first 6 or 7 episodes are very much Diego Luna's. He's demonstrating, he is Cassian Andor. Cassian Andor's this, that, and the other thing. He's demonstrating this. He's doing this. He's showing off how cool he is and how, what a kind of a skilled, muted agent he is. And it's as though Stellan Skarsgård, the actor who plays Luthen, and Genevieve O'Reilly, the actress who plays Mon Mothma, essentially had oh, that's cool, a hold my beer moment when it comes on how to act. And Stellan Skarsgård's speech was just like, fuck me. That's awesome. And Genevieve O'Reilly has a scene in episode 11 that I was just floored. I'm like, this is amazing.
Which scene?
This is Oscar performance. The scene in which she is discussing with Vel the latter half of the series, Mon Mothma sort of sullies herself to cover the fact that she is funneling money to Luthen Vale and the rebellion.
Right.
She realizes that her financial not indiscretion, but her financial dealings could be exposed from an upcoming Imperial audit. She attempts to recruit a friend to help her, and he introduces her to an underworld. Yeah, Evil. Yes, he introduces her to Evil that she will have to directly confront or accept in order to save her own ass, but also the rebellion. And the price is her daughter. And when she's discussing that with her cousin Vel Sartha, the stone mask that Mon Mothma always wears begins to crack ever so slightly with just a line in the face of not even a facial expression, just a slight twitch of muscle. And eventually she has not even a tear rolling down her face, nothing so dramatic, but her eyes are moist. And it takes a minute 2 of that conversation. And like, well, that must be what it's like to be a wealthy, powerful senator and come to the realization and verbalize it that you're going to sell your daughter to a criminal to cover up for what this is how deeply you hold your values to the cost of many other things. And it was one of those like slow clap moments of acting.
I was confused by that part of the storyline. And I know I got it wrong, but let me tell you the way I saw it. I thought one of the best scenes was when her talking to the underworld boss and her...
That dude was a pimp.
Visceral reaction of disgust.
Yeah.
That was a great scene. But the scene that threw me a curveball and made me misread everything henceforth was her fight with her husband leaving the party. You know, she loosened up her collar. I thought she was going to get ready to seduce him to do something.
Yes, right? Shows the décolletage.
Right. And she knows her driver's listening, and she picks a fight to accuse him of gambling. I thought that she was going to attribute the lost money as her husband essentially embezzling or gambling the money away. But instead, she decided to deal with this underworld boss, reject it, and then one of the final scenes, she still does the introduction. So if you are correct that she held her beliefs so strongly that she was willing to, I wouldn't say sacrifice her daughter, because it sounded like her daughter was going to meet a guy like that anyways.
Yeah, they heavily imply she's not, well, they don't imply it, they show it. She's very resentful of her mom.
Yeah.
And she's swept up in some sort of religious movement.
I believe the religious movement was adhering to their culture, and part of their culture was getting arranged at 14, right? So it was in the cards for her. She was going to bring home that kind of guy anyways. So I'm not sure if Mon Mothma just signed off on it, if she had plan A, plan B, or what was the whole point of her throwing her husband / partner under the bus?
I took it as a plan A, plan B.
Okay.
When I saw that scene, I smiled because I thought, that's a really good move.
Oh, I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, you're giving an excellent reason to a spy you know is listening.
Yeah.
For whatever financial impropriety there exists in your accounts. And they show a follow-up scene, which is they're discussing exactly that, which is, her husband has gambling debts, which might explain any of that. So I think she was covering her tracks from multiple angles. But that gambling debt couldn't be fully explained, so she has to take because she still needs more money. So she has to take the additional step of engaging with a known criminal enterprise. And throughout all of this, her political doublespeak and the talk of the criminal himself, and knowing full well that she despises him, but also holding all the cards. It's just an excellent bit of writing. Just fantastic. I wish I could talk like that to people.
I mean, I never saw that show House of Cards, but I'm assuming that type of storyline. Wasn't the House of Cards the presidency with the...
Yeah, Kevin Spacey.
Yeah. I got to assume that's politics, right? That's what those people do.
Yeah, it was a little more naked in House of Cards. House of Cards is a fucked up show. The first season or two is excellent. Once you kind of Kevin Spacey is difficult to view through
Of course.
a lens other than the personal one now.
Yeah.
Especially now that he's been accused of 7 other sexual assaults.
Yeah. But he's a great actor, but he's a monster.
Fantastic actor, but it is difficult to view, especially in some of the scenes that he does.
Ooh.
At the time you view it, you're like, oh, okay, you're a senator, you're corrupt.
So he
now that
wasn't
you know,
acting. He wasn't acting.
other
He was just
other than
living
that,
out.
it was
Yeah.
yeah. Other than that, it was with a girl, not acting.
Yeah. Oh. Well.
Okay, let's we had to put the train back on the tracks.
So, do you think Mon Mothma just was like, yeah, my daughter's going to marry this scumbag and he fits in with all these politicians? Or do you think she just went through the motions and was praying that her daughter wouldn't end up with this guy, but she needed the loan? And also, here's another question. The whole time I was thinking, why isn't her cousin giving her 400,000 credits from the Aldani?
I know. That's what I was thinking. Like,
I would have thought
like,
Luthen would have
at
been
least,
like, okay, yeah, we need a senator in our corner.
yeah, like you got like 40 million credits from that because Cassian got like 13 or 14 or something like that, which luckily no one checked. Like no janitor or maid in the 3 or 4 months he was gone said, hey, you know what? I'm going to clean above the shower. Also, this is the first time I've ever seen a toilet in Star Wars.
It is?
He had to stand on a toilet, or the refresher, as it's usually called, to get his money.
Right. They also had the toilet in the jail scene when he was breaking the water pipe.
Yes. Good point.
So, side point, House Cleaning would have found that shit.
Thank
Without
you.
a doubt. House Cleaning would
100%.
have found it.
Yeah.
That it was not that well hidden. There wasn't even a panel. It was just high.
No.
Or they're saying the house cleanings are short. That's racist. But so I can make that joke. But yeah, I mean, these are small plot holes or little things that we can point out. But I thought Mon Mothma was fantastic. The acting. I thought Luthen had the best scene. I mean, there's just no way around it.
He certainly had the best speech.
He had the best speech. I think also we got to give an honorary mention to Saw Gerrera because
he was fantastic.
When he called Luthen back to tell him, "Hey, I'm in. I want in I want in with Krieger, but give me all that stuff and give me these extra spoils." Here's my theory. That is why Saw Gerrera went crazy and no longer trusted anybody.
I would say yes and no. So Mon Mothma does not like Saw Gerrera. She disagrees vehemently with his philosophy. Sure. He is, and Luthen Vale he says this explicitly, but he is also shown being very willing to blur the lines of morality to accomplish his goals. Saw Gerrera is perfectly fine with murder, torture, etc. to accomplish his goals of fighting in the Empire. Now that takes a huge cost on him, both physically and metaphorically, and eventually results in his death. But I like in that scene, in the first scene, it's just kind of like, oh, it's Saw Gerrera, cool. You know, you get to see who he was a little bit. He plays heavily into the Rebels animated series. He's a very important character, as is Mon Mothma.
Okay.
But in absentia that, the second scene where they meet in his war camp, his hidden war camp, and he does that, and Luthen does the boss move of getting the other guy to come near him, steals his blaster and puts it up under Saw Gerrera's chin, and his response is, "There's no way you're going to make it out alive. Of that, you have to be sure." He's like, "No, this is just so you listen." I'm like, yeah, strong move.
Well done, sir.
And he explains to him what's going to happen, and then the first attempt is, "Oh, it's for the greater good," and Luthen says, "You can call it whatever you want," and Saw responds, "Let's call it war." For me, that is the excuse that he'll need, or the reason, whichever, to couch all of his further actions under. And I think in some way, all of the primary characters exhibit that. It's easiest to see with Gerrera and Vale, because both of them explicitly kill other people to accomplish their goals. Ferrix, your example is excellent. But also Mon Mothma. She sacrifices her daughter.
Oh, yeah. Some would say that's more evil. It depends where your moral lines fall.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize until this conversation, I didn't use the phrase sacrifice her daughter, but that is what she's doing.
Oh, yeah.
And not just anybody, to a criminal.
Piece of shit daughter. Let's put the qualifier on it. I side with Mom Mothma on this one.
I'm gonna say this.
If my daughter turned out like that, I'm arranging her marriage and I'm sending her off.
So I get ticked when my daughter, who is 6, wants a new toy. She just turned 6. I get ticked, or at least annoyed, and I explain this to her when she wants a new toy right after her birthday. I'm like, you just got all this cool shit.
Yeah.
How could you possibly? Now, I am not fabulously rich, living in the upper echelons, both physically and metaphorically, of Coruscant society. I don't live in a palace. I don't have a speeder dock on my front porch.
Yep.
If I had all those things and my daughter starts grousing about, you're never home, do you know what it takes to get this apartment? Look at your dining room. Your chairs are made of crystal. Do you think that it takes a little bit more than an 8-hour day?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, she was.
I feel you.
She was a royal brat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's 13, but compounded with being exceptionally wealthy.
Yeah, I would have. Oh my God! But now she's going to be in a mafia with hitmen. Oh, she's going to be a monster, even worse.
I love that the husband, Perrin, was just such a fop. He was just. He even had a man bun?
Yeah,
just to like really seal the deal. I was like, perfect.
Yeah, he was a throwaway character for me. I mean, I had a hard time remembering his name.
Agreed.
I thought he was going to, discover
Me too.
her plot and then either side with her and they find common ground or expose her because he wanted the lifestyle and didn't want. They did nothing with him, as it probably should.
Yeah, in a way, I think that's more fitting for his character. He's this apathetic, just not lackey leech. Not a leech is intent. Has intent.
Parasite?
He just is a parasite. He's just this foppish parasite who enjoys the trappings that Mon Mothma provides, and does a little bit better at appreciating them than her daughter.
That is true. You know what? He knew where his bread was buttered. That makes sense.
Yes, exactly.
Right? He wasn't happy, but he wasn't going to throw too big of a wrench into it because he had it good.
Yeah, like, oh, you can still go to Canto Bight and gamble and whore around? Well, I mean, okay.
Sign me up.
Yeah. I'll be resentful, but at least I'll enjoy it.
Wow.
So, taking away, what are like the 3 strongest things or like the 3, if you had to break it down to 3, because obviously we think it's more.
Yeah.
What are the 3 big things that you take away from this series?
So I know that there's the movies and then there's the shows. And animated shows are in that category for me, right? This is the first show where I feel like they've created a branch, not to another universe. How do I put this? I feel like this show allowed them to not explore the universe, but expand the way they tell a story, right? They can, I hope they don't do this, but they could rinse and repeat Andor to another system and their plate. Now, I don't know if it'll have the same connection to taking down the Death Star, but I saw this in Lord of the Rings. So in Lord of the Rings, there was the geographical area and there was multiple wars going on in different geographical areas. The Tolkien story followed the Fellowship and then, Helm's Deep and Osgiliath, and I can't think of the name right now. What's the main city of Gondor? Not Ecatilion.
I have no idea.
Minas Tirith, right? And then the Black Gate.
Don't ask me.
Yeah, so it followed kind of this areas, but there were battles in the north, there were battles at sea, there were battles going on everywhere. It wasn't really explored in other books. I feel like here with Andor, they can now explore other systems, and we're in. Because they finally made me root for the rebels. Not just because they were good guys. They were like, this is an oppressive regime. Let's see how they stand up against it. Let's see how they contribute to the cause. Now, in Rogue One, you have all those different commanders meeting in the Rebel Alliance?
Yeah.
Now, after Andor, you could build a backstory for each one of those commanders.
You can. And actually, one of the So the other escapee that Andor is with is in Rogue One. He has no lines, but he's in the background scene when the assassins and saboteurs who go to Scarif.
That's awesome.
I'm sure that actor was like, when he got the call, me? Me?
I was an extra.
I get a line? Oh my goodness. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But please, second point.
I feel like they just, again, not expanded the universe, but now they have clear avenues to go down. You know, I love Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian was something similar. I'll give them that, where they explored it. But it felt like they pulled it out of thin air, if that makes sense. There was really no clear design. Like, what's the next group that they're going to do this with and expand?
Yeah, agreed. There's nothing organic. You knew the Mandalorian existed before, but there wasn't.
Sure.
Other than his story being interesting, the connection to Grogu, and him just being cool and charismatic, there's nothing. Yeah, I'm failing at the words, but I see what you're saying.
Picked it out of thin air, and I'm glad they did. One of my favorite shows. But here, now they have a clear path to building the backstories of all these, maybe not crucial players, but now they can build out the weave of the universe. And to me, that is the most important thing about this show. They have the next 10 years of not scripts written for them, but they can outline, kind of like the Marvel Universe did. They now, it's all open to them. They don't have to pull stuff out of the air anymore, like they did with Mandalorian. So I think that was the biggest thing. And because of this show, this might be my number 2. I've finally forgiven the Star Wars franchise and Disney. Yeah, we're good. Prequels, post-schools, whatever you call them. We're good. I'm in. All's forgiven. Just, I'll tell you what, don't make movies anymore, make shows. And I think we'll be on a better trajectory for this universe. What was the other big takeaway from this? I think this is the first show without heroes.
Good point.
I can't call any of these guys heroes, right? Because, Cassian Andor, when he described himself in Rogue One, yeah, that sounds about right. Luthen, yeah, that sounds just about right. You might be heroes for the cause. The annals of history, I think is the term, might be favorable towards you if you win, but you got to do some nasty stuff. You got to fight fire with fire. You have to, as Luthen said, use the tools of your enemy to defeat your enemy. You got to sell your soul to get out from under this boot, because that's the only way you're going to do it. Luke Skywalker wasn't doing that. Obi-Wan Kenobi wasn't doing that. Rey wasn't doing that. They were all fighting the good fight, fighting for truth, justice, and the American way. Right? That was the feeling of all of these movies. In this one, was anybody really that different than Saw Gerrera? Different flavor, different tactic.
I think they exist on a spectrum, but with the phrase "sell your soul" is, I think, an appropriate one. All of them do that to a greater or lesser extent.
Yeah.
Rey doesn't sell her soul. Luke Skywalker doesn't sell his soul. His conflict is, should I kill my dad, or can I redeem him? His previous greatest conflict in his life was should I replace the toilet paper with 2-ply or 1? And that's it.
Because of that, I felt like a lot of the Rebel characters and storylines were juxtaposed to people in the ISB. Right?
Yeah.
Of course, they were unlikable, Miro, Cyril Khan. But what Luthen was doing, was he any different than Officer Belvin and Miro were fighting it out? Wasn't that what Saw Gerrera and Luthen?
No, great point.
So another thing that I like, and I think the reason why I was able to make this connection was because they literally put the scenes together, is I think it was a scene of Mon Mothma. I think she was talking to Vel, and they were discussing their daughter. Or not their daughter, but her daughter. And then right after that, they jumped to a scene with Cyril Khan and his mother. And both of it was clear that overbearing mother, trying to control your life. And I was just like, oh man, that was a dig, but I liked it because there were people you could cheer for, but I don't know if they were good guys, or I don't know if they were heroes.
You definitely hate Cyril Karn's mom, though. Like, no one likes Cyril Karn. There's no redeeming aspect of him.
Even
in
her
a way,
son
you
stole
feel
from her.
Yeah, but
and
when
I
he
didn't feel
does,
too bad about it.
no, it's right after the scene. Like, he steals the money to go to get back to Ferrex. Right after, like, he gets a call from his old buddy, and she says some shitty thing to him because the call woke her. Finally, the trappings of your old life won't have to keep me up anymore. And then goes back to bed. I'm like, you bitch. The only thing he's doing is eating cereal at your house, and he works a shitty job at the Imperial, what is it? The Imperial Statistics Bureau, or Bureau of Statistics for fuel depots.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I liked how I don't want to say they blurred the lines, but it wasn't so, they dimmed the lines, let's just put it.
Yes. Yeah, and I would agree. I'm just writing down your points because I would agree with a lot of them. Well, and the whole episode and the last episode we talked about Andor was just us agreeing with each other. This is great. I know it's great here too, but I think you bring up I think you have a different vantage when you make your points, and I agree with them all. It's interesting to see how we pick up on different thematic elements and how we like them. So, yes, I think the of the top three, the view of the conflict from the populace is unique in the story of Star Wars. And they obviously have a clear path to lots of backstories, but you said rinse and repeat, and I hope they don't do that either. The power of Andor is that no one's famous. I mean, no one's a giant glittering hero.
Sure. No
one's using the Force. There was no lightsaber. There was one scene where I thought the guy was screwing on the hilt of a lightsaber. What's up?
I think Luthen's ship had lightsabers, because how the fuck did he pull that off?
Okay, that was badass. I also agree. I'm like, did he just fucking shoot? Did he shoot lightsabers out of the size of the Fondor? Because damn.
I think they repurposed Reva's circular lightsaber for Luthen's ship.
Yeah. I was like, well, she wasn't fucking using it very well.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Yeah. That was another good scene. Just an excellent demonstration of, and one of the only space battle scene, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And it shows Luthen's cunning and the Empire's arrogant overreach, which is a common theme with lots of these, with lots of the movies. Your faith in your friends is your weakness. Your pride is your weakness. Now he says something else.
I think it's reversed. Your pride is your weakness. Your faith in your friends is yours.
Yeah. Your arrogance is your weakness. Your faith in your friends is, oh my God, I feel embarrassed that I can't remember the line. I need to take off my Botafini's. So it shows the conflict because the clear path is from the view of the common person, hence, and the graying of the moral, the blurring, the dimming. I like dimming better than blurring. That was blurring. That was a really good way to phrase it. The dimming of the lines of morality is an excellent story purpose. All the main characters, like you said, sell their soul in some way. And are they all that different? If you switch the power dynamic, if you put Saw in power, if you put Vale in power, Luthen, and you made Dedra Meero and Cyril Karn, the freedom fighters, it would look about the same.
Yeah.
Because, to your point, the tactics that Luthen Vale and Saw Gerrera use, by their admission, are their enemy's tactics. Mon Mothma would seem a conniving, evil senator who, oh my God, she sold her own daughter to accomplish her aims. Yeah. Well, she does, but it's for freedom. It's not for oppression. And that's an important distinction. But you're right. The tactics that they use are the same. It's a very gray existence, which is cool.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, usually Luke Skywalker and Rey wear white, and bad guys wear black, and that is very much by design.
I mean, in this universe, even the Mandalorian, which is a mercenary race, we're still portrayed as good people, right? With honorable morals.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have
none of this shit applied in this one.
No. There's very little morals going on. There's a fight that you can identify, well, hopefully not identify with, but there's a fight that you can empathize with. And yes, it's an oppressive regime. And they do a good job of showing that the Empire is gigantic, slow, dominating, and asshole-ish. And that they enjoy doing it.
I would go to even evil. And here's why.
Sure. But you have to apply that same, by your logic, you have to apply that same label to the heroes in the story. Mon Saw and Luthen. Oh, okay, please.
I actually disagree. One of my favorite scenes, and maybe this should have been in my top 3 most important things, was the final credit scene in the finale.
The post-credit scene or the final credits?
Post-credit. I apologize.
Yeah. No, I'm just clarifying because I only discovered there was a post-credit and I made my family watch it.
It's so important. To me, that was probably one of the most important points. So for anybody who hasn't seen it, I know we spoil the shit out of this show, so I'll make sure to do spoiler alerts in the description.
Well, I think the real spoiler is that Cassian Andor was gay. No, I'm kidding. If you guys are listening, no, that's just...
Well, that's...
He's not.
Apparently, that's the value take when you join the Rebel Alliance, and none of these people we're talking about are just referencing. So the final scene is they explain the gears that the prison colonies were making, which were instrumental at making the ray dish for the Death Star. Yeah,
the super laser dish.
And to me, I wanted to say that was, if there's a linchpin to this show, that was it. To me, it made the Empire evil, that they were willing to create this, the PORD. In my opinion, the PORD was in response to the Aldhani heist. I don't believe so. I believe the PORD was a plan that was already created but couldn't be enacted. You just can't drop that kind of legislation on a people and not have pushback. But the Aldhani heist gave the Empire the justification to drop that creed, which then allowed them to, double, triple sentencing and expand sentencing for people. And then that was what was on the books. But the actual plan was to create slave labor for some unknown Death Star.
Yeah. And and it was a great point. It's like, I'm 200 shifts away from getting out. And you realize, no, you're not getting out. You're being moved to a different level.
Yep. To do the same thing until you die.
Yeah. To make widgets.
I had always wondered, how did they build the Death Star? Slave labor.
No, and this is a really good representation of it. They show how massive the Empire must be. When Cyril Karn's working at his new little pod, I'm sure every person who works in a cubicle felt that on a level they shouldn't.
Yeah.
He's one of thousands of people on a single floor, multiplied by all the other floors that you can see as the camera pans out. And you can see how small and small and smaller and smaller and smaller he views his life as the camera pans out, and what hell that is for him because he has that much more of a diminished impact. And you do see, originally I thought they were making struts for a TIE fighter wing with the hexagonal, but I think I was off on that anyway because obviously it's a Death Star super laser dish, which it, like I said, fuses some of the different plates. Anyway.
Sure.
I thought you made a good point with the connection to the Death Star, but actually I thought the power of the show was that it didn't need that connection. Like, we've said there's no, aside from the Easter eggs in Vale's shop, there's no lightsaber, there's no Force. No one even talks about the Force.
I see what you're saying.
It didn't need that. And it was still it was maybe even a more powerful show for it. I think it would have been a bit cheesy to lean back on that. Now, The Mandalorian is cool because it brings all of that in, but you said, it was a story plucked from thin air. It seemed, and this is, not diminishing for it, it seemed more like you had a bunch of fanboys and girls in the room saying, what's badass? Mandalorian. We could put him in silver armor. He should have a spear, but the spear is made of the same thing as armor, and it can block a fucking lightsaber, and he struts with the dark saber. And it just got to be this nerd orgasm in the room. And they just put everything that was on the whiteboard brainstorming session into the show. I'm not knocking that because it was awesome.
Yeah,
here, they stripped all that away. And they had I'm not going to belabor the point. The story from the common man. Forgiven for the Star Wars universe. Obviously, I have a huge soft spot for the Star Wars universe. I forgive all. but I have a very tough time forgiving episodes 8 and 9 of the sequels of the sequel trilogy. Main point, common man. Second main point, I thought the writing was probably the best example of strong writing, not only in plot but in dialogue, and just the poetry of the language and how the language is used to represent the different strata of society that we see: prison, slaves, common man, the upper echelon of society, senators, government, double dealings, criminals. It was so well written and so well acted. I mean, you have an Academy Award-winning actor in Forrest Whitaker portraying Saw Gerrera. You have Stellan Skarsgård, who's previously the same character in every movie, but now is Luthen Vale in every movie.
Kills it.
Yeah, I know. He just fucking kills it. It's so, and I mean, this is to take nothing away from Miro, Cyril Karn, or the actors who portray Miro, Cyril Karn, and Diego Luna, who portrays Andor, and all the other supporting cast. It was just so well acted. And then I think the third thing for me was that it crystallized not only Empire, but it, for just maybe the first time I've seen it, explains through the lens of political philosophy what the rebellion is. And it's through the journal in the last scene, I cannot remember his name.
Oh, yeah.
Of the youngest kid that dies in the Aldhani heist, who gives Andor his journal.
Nemik.
And Nemik, thank you. And it shows Andor listening to that. And of course, that's, kind of shows while he's waiting to rescue Bix Kayleen the next day at the Ferrix at Marva's funeral, he's listening to that. And that, it's not a reading between the lines in this one, but you can extrapolate. This is where he starts to understand what rebellion is and the more noble precepts that it can be. Yes, they all sell their soul, but this is the goal. This is why they sell their soul. With the Empire, it is, at least as portrayed, it's power. Sometimes it's order. Sometimes when you see through the eyes of the clone trooper or someone from The Mandalorian, one of the person who originally requests Grogu, who's under Moff Gideon's employ, says, "Look around you. The Empire is clean. It promotes order. Do you see anything that's improved from the rebellion?" That was one of the first instances you see of like, oh, it's not just fucking evil super lasers blowing up planets. People wanted this. And here in this show, it shows why people want a rebellion, not just from an oppressive government, but what is the philosophy behind that? Why would they move? Why is this considered a good thing? And this kid is explaining the different things. Now, it's no different than any other like philosophy that's been explained in the courses you took, but I did not in college. And reading you've probably done, but I haven't. But I don't know, those are really powerful. And I think we'd be remiss, and this is not my favorite thing of the episodes, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't at least touch on the ISB and Dedra Meero and Cyril Karn. Because the way it ends is Meero gets knocked down in the riot, gets her blaster knocked out of her hand, and she's starting to be drugged by the mob through the streets. Right. And at first, I was like, all right, this is a really poetic way for her to end. This is completely appropriate for her character arc, but I was disappointed because I think she's an interesting character. But then Cyril Karn rescues her, and it seems almost like they could have had that like weird, heated romantic moment, which would have made no sense. And thankfully they didn't while they're trapped in that closet and he's hiding her. Yeah. And she says, "I suppose I should say thank you." She doesn't fucking say thank you. She says she suppose she should. And Cyril Karn says, "You don't have to." Complete understanding between their characters. And it makes her that much better at being this cold-hearted ISB juggernaut in a way. And him being someone who wants to be that, but is just this sniveling fucking coward. And credit to the actors. You just hate both of them. At least with one, you like Meero because she's like, it's fun to be it's fun to have that villain. But every scene that Cyril Karn's in, you're like, oh, fucking this guy. All right, done.
So I would say once she gets the approval to start doing her investigation and she gets to Bix, she turns contemptuous. Half the time, her lips shaking.
Oh, yeah.
She's, I don't want to say growling, but pursing her teeth as if she would growl when she would talk to Bix or anybody about the plans and going after them. Why do you think that flip happened in her? She was always cold and calculating, but she just became contemptuous at the end. Even when she was talking to Cyril Karn
yes.
About I guess I should thank you. She was still angry at him. And I think she still had a knife to his throat, understandably.
Yeah, I thought I could not tell what she grabbed. To be honest with you, it looked like a mashed potatoes smasher.
It was something.
With some points.
Yeah.
Is that really dangerous? I mean, it must be for the point of the story, but it didn't look dangerous. It looked like either that or like an electric shaver.
Yeah.
He's already clean shaven.
She could have taken him out with that. I don't think he would have put up much resistance.
I don't think he can fight. I don't think he can fight at all. I think this show is pretty good at demonstrating he probably isn't good in a fight.
Yeah.
He's a coward. So why do I think she turned contemptuous? I don't know if she necessarily turned contemptuous. I think she was allowed an avenue to show it. Because previously she's always in the confines of the ISB. She's demonstrating how she works within that structure. But when you see her... When you see her interact with, not her peers or colleagues, but someone she considers beneath her, I mean, you see in one of her last lines, I suppose I should say thank you. She doesn't thank him for saving her life.
So because she didn't have sufficient power, she had to play fair or play nice or play within the rules. Now that she's investigating all these people who don't have power against her, she can allow her cruelty to come out. Yeah,
I think she's given a place for her cruelty to go, other than, through political machination. She can physically be cruel to people, and she does it so well. And again, it's what's not said that I think is powerful. They never show Bix's torture except for like just 1 second.
Sure.
But they show the aftermath of it. Like in a typical movie, maybe not Star Wars because it's PG-13, you go and see that torture. Faux show.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, with the Empire being evil, about the slave labor, I also, and kind of to your point, the torture of Bix and the way most of the Imperial forces acted within that hotel showed that they enjoyed it. From the guy in charge of the hotel asking to hang that other guy, I'd like to hang him, to the doctor explaining the torture to Bix and kind of like, well, it's going to be a little rough, and making very light about ruining somebody previously and about to ruin her. It would have been nicer if it was callous, but it wasn't, which made it worse.
Well, they
enjoy their jobs.
They enjoy their jobs, and they did a very good job. And I haven't read this, but it's pretty, not heavy-handed, but it's pretty well observed. And we mentioned this last time we talked about this. They don't do a whole lot to dissuade you that they're Nazis.
Yeah.
Their pants have the same cut.
They have slave labor building, not
death
a
weapons.
Camp, but death weapons, yeah.
Yeah. And they have multiple camps like that. The prison complex in which they're housed is gigantic.
Yeah.
And you see when they land on that planet, there are many of them.
Yes.
So good.
That's the one thing I noticed.
So good. Oh, and the point of tragedy, I think we have to mention. So Andy Serkis, again, fantastic actor. They're just pulling in top level talent. I can't imagine anybody listening to this podcast wouldn't know, but Andy Serkis is Ulysses Claw from Black Panther. Oh, but he's also Gollum and Caesar from Planet of the Apes and Snoke.
Yeah.
So
I forgot about Snoke. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not. It's not the shining example on his resume. Unfortunately, could have been, but it's not. When all of them escape, and Andor's like, "Are you coming with me?" And he says, "I can't swim."
I thought that was so unnecessarily messed up, but why this show was great.
It's heartbreaking. It's the small tragedies that.
Don't you think he would have thought that one through? And his best scene was when he broke and then accepted death, and then he just changed as a person. Yeah. And he announced, he was fighting. So the scene was Cassian was trying to encourage Kino, I think his name was, Kino, to tell everybody that everyone died on level 2, no one's getting out. And Kino had to go into a cell, have a little mini breakdown, and then he just finally shouted out, "No one's going anywhere," or something to that effect. No one's getting out, I believe. Yeah. And after that, he was a different person, and in my opinion, from the look in his eyes, he accurately portrayed someone who just accepted death.
Yep. Yeah. So a quick question, and we pointed this Oh, please go ahead. You look like you want to say something.
And so what I struggled with at the scene where he looked at the water and said he couldn't swim, is that because he knew that was their escape, or did he just not plan it out? Like, I kind of wanted a little bit of clarity on that one, because now, is he just going to drown because he accepted death, or is he going to accept death in the colony and just stay there and get recaptured? Or, I wanted to know what happened.
That's a really, yeah. So I didn't think about it until right now. He probably would have known he was on an island because he was flown.
I would have taken something that float with me. Maybe one of those boots, those plastic boots, the insulated.
Okay, so two nitpicks during the prison break scene.
I would have put on the boots.
I would have put on the boots too. No one put on the boots.
Stupid.
The boots would have helped later. Maybe they're not good to swim in, but they probably would have helped not carve up your feet while you're climbing over icy mountains.
Yeah.
So boots. Would have put on the boots. You stopped to grab the blasters. Didn't look like the boots took a whole lot of time to put on. So there's that. And then when they do take over the communications hub and they have them shut down the security and shut down the floors on all of the floors, they didn't kill them.
Yeah.
Like, they can just go turn on more buttons and then you leave. Now, I can assume that all the other prisoners that saw it be like, no, we're going to go ahead and take some time with you.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. I don't know. It was a chaotic scene, and so I let a lot of that stuff go. I don't think these people were ever going to be of their right mind.
No, and they did a very good job of showing a chaotic prison break.
Yeah. No shuttles there? None?
Yeah, I know. No shuttles. Yeah.
None? But, it was a plan thrown together, and it is what it... Also, only 2 made it out of 5,000?
I'm going to assume more made it. More had to have made it. But the only 2 you see are Andor and Scottish friend.
Yeah. I'm hoping. I don't think it was a bad scene. I just think maybe they didn't have time to fill in all these things. Wouldn't somebody help you swim? Especially if you're a yard boss? Since you're a shot caller?
Well, I mean, you do get the emotional punch of the tragedy of his character, which is he could never have escaped. Unless, to your point, there was a shuttle, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah. I hope he survives. I don't know. I don't know what to do with that one. That was the roughest part, because I almost demanded an answer to what happened to his character. That was the only one. Like the daughter, Mon Mothma's daughter, I don't give a shit what happens to her. Vel and her girlfriend, I don't give a shit what happens to them. But
I love how they show that relationship is not, like, Vel is clearly second, maybe third or fourth.
Yes.
To her, I can't remember her girlfriend's name, but her girlfriend is a soldier, first, second, and third, and then there's Vel.
Yeah.
Well, I thought you'd say hi. I said hi.
Yeah. It was almost like they're not going to be together if they're not on a mission together.
Agreed.
Right? So, yeah, Vel was pretty unlikable in my opinion. I just
in
never
a good
got
way. No, I agree. There was, well, I mean, other than the big four, you don't, well, actually, I guess there's 6 main characters. Miro, Cyril Karn, Andor, obviously. I'll say 5, because then you have Mon Mothma and Vale, not Saw Gerrera. He's like a fun 2 scenes, but they're great.
Yeah.
Yeah, she never did anything that was truly gripping. You never know where to stand with her. I thought the fun part was when she goes from scrubby Sherpa rebel to Senator's cousin, who's Chandrillon high society.
Yeah, that was a surprising twist. I thought it was going to be a cover. Oh,
yeah, cleans up real nice.
Yeah,
cleans up real nice. I was like, wow, Sherpa clothes really don't do anything for you.
Well, we are running long on this.
Oh, we're so long. I'm sorry.
Do some editing. Any final thoughts? It is your opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you think we're going to get a season 2 of Andor.
I do think we're going to get a season 2 of Andor. I think they left too many juicy plot strings still going to not give that.
I sincerely hope so. The problem is we won't know for a year, right? We're still waiting for the next season of The Mandalorian. So
that's already going to happen. There's going to be a Willow series that starts on November 30th.
Oh, that's right. I heard about that.
Yeah, I'm totally watching that. And Yeah. So agreed. But there's going to be plenty of content. I'm sure there's going to be Andor series 2. My final thought is that it's the best example of writing and storytelling and characterization that I think the Star Wars, at least the live actions and maybe most of the animated film shows series, has to offer.
Even though my heart tells me no because I grew up as a kid, I think this is the best Star Wars series. Hands down. Yeah, I think this is the best. And you know what a fan of The Mandalorian I am. I just, from a quality standpoint, doesn't mean my heart would decide this is the best. It's just objectively the best. This one could win awards.
Agreed. Yeah.
Where I don't.
Well, like we said with Rogue One is a good film, and then it's in a Star Wars universe.
Yeah. This
is a great series. It's in a Star Wars universe.
I think it's the best.
No.
I know. I like the laser wizards, space wizards. But this has quality written all over it.
I didn't cry during this series. I cried during Kenobi. So
sure. Another great one. I just
like bitch tears too. It was bad.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Well, all right, we're going to wrap this up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and I'm sure we'll be reviewing some other Star Wars show soon. If you guys are willing to listen, we are willing to talk. Catch you later.
That's it. That's our show. Join IAG and myself for our next Rapid Fire episode where we catch up and I discuss an interesting phone call I received where I had to tell someone to lawyer up. Please do us the favor and like, subscribe, share this podcast so we can get some traction. Once I get around to it, check us out on our socials. Combative Nerds on Patreon, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You know the deal. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you next episode.